I've never known JJ Abrams to actually have answers to the questions he sets up. The guy is just addicted to coming up with questions. I cannot imagine what he was like in middle school science class.
We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on.
Since this is your first time on the High Council, if you give us your brief thoughts, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, quick 1 out of 10, and then, basic thoughts, and then where we are now.
Yeah, Force Awakens is a 1 out of 10. Last Jedi is a 1 out of 10. Rise of Skywalker is a 1 out of 10. Well, yes and no. I'm not trying to be sarcastic in that sense. As you and I talked a few years ago, Jeff, I didn't like The Force Awakens when it originally came out. In the theater, I was very upset. I thought the story was slipshod, and I felt like all the unanswered questions with more unanswered questions piled on was a very unsafe thing to do. And we talked about that. And sure enough, it came true, because then a rogue director comes in for the 8th chapter and throws the outline out, if they ever had an outline to begin with. They're claiming that now, but I don't think so, because I've never known JJ Abrams to actually have answers to the questions he sets up. The guy is just addicted to coming up with questions. I cannot imagine what he was like in middle school science class. But Rise of Skywalker, I feel like that movie, first of all, it's way too fast and perfunctory. Remember how when we all came out of Revenge of the Sith, we all talked about, at least the people that weren't terribly thrilled with it, how the endings were just, in the final act, the last scenes were just a series of wipes. Just wipe, wipe, wipe. We got to get this out of the way. We got to get this out of the way. We got to get this out of the way. Rise of Skywalker was that at, 50 times the speed. It was just, the whole movie was a series of necessary wipes, trying to get certain things staged up. And it felt like chaos. The whole movie just felt like chaos. And like Mecca said, it did feel like they were so desperate to get certain people in certain spots to say certain lines that they were hand-holding you. Feel this here. Feel this here, feel this here, just like she said. And it reminded me of the opening level of most video games, where they tutorial you through the controls. Mm-hmm. This is a cliff. Now remember, when you see a cliff, hit the Y button to grab and push upward. So from here on out, you will learn to do that. That's how the movie felt. It felt like a movie version of that.
Yes, but you couldn't skip the cutscenes. I think I even put that in my review too. There were scenes like with Han Solo or Luke Skywalker. I'm like, can I skip this part? Can I skip past this part and get to the action scene where I can mash the buttons on the controller?
Yes.
It never comes.
It never comes. It never happens. Yeah. And also, these are, I have some broader thoughts about, in retrospect, about the trilogy that we can get into when we get into broader discussion. But just as a sort of minor example of what I've been thinking of over the last few weeks, we get to the end of Rise of Skywalker, and that story for another time about how Anakin's / Luke's lightsaber that was lost in Cloud City was found in Maz Kanata's basement, right? And I sit there and I go, okay, never explained. Why didn't they just make that lightsaber in the box the green one? Because if they'd made it the green one, that would have solved all the problems and made it plausible as to how it was found. You would have had Luke with the green lightsaber as his holographic self at the end of Last Jedi, so that wouldn't have been a question, because I don't think Luke would have been visualizing himself with the blue one. It's all, those are just little things that the screenwriters weren't thinking of, as they just kind of ate Cocoa Puffs and ran around in the backyard. It didn't make any sense.
The previous highlight was brought to you by your friends at the High Council and their guests. If you liked what you heard here, I encourage you to subscribe to all of their channels, which are linked in the description below. Also, subscribe to PopCulturePB so that you never miss a High Council highlight.